Good afternoon and welcome to the latest episode of Across the Line, your home for all things Chicago Bears. I'm David.
My name is Jackson, and today we're going to jump right in talking about the splash that the Bears made yesterday at the trade deadline, trading a second-round draft pick for next year to the Commanders in exchange for Montez Sweat, much-needed D-line help. You get a prolific pass rusher. So far this season, he's got 6.5 sacks. Against the Bears, he put up 1.5 sacks on our O-line, so I think I'm really excited about this move.
Me too. It's one of those moves that doesn't set you up for this year, but it's more of a future outlook on it.
Right.
You know, this year he has 35 tackles, 6.5 sacks, a forced fumble, and 2 pass breakups, compared to the entire Bears D-line who has 6.5 sacks.
Right.
So you're pretty much doubling your sack total, but it's bringing in by one guy.
Right.
Yes, he is up for an extension at the end of the year, and while it was reported this morning that there's no framework on an extension yet, I think we're about a few weeks away till we see him extended.
Yeah, and I think we definitely are going to see him extended. I've heard talk, critiques of this move have said, oh, his contract's coming up, you know, he's not going to be on the team, you know, this doesn't set us up for anything. I would argue the exact opposite. I say this is a guy who you sign for a multi-year deal. This is a guy who you build your defensive line around, you build your front 7, front 8 around, and I think this is a guy who's going to be prolific for the Bears for the next coming years.
Yeah, this type of move does not lock in Matt Eberflus for the future.
No.
Because Sweat can either play a 4-3 defensive end or a 3-4 outside linebacker just because of his frame and his size and his speed. So don't think that's too much of Flus is a guy for the future. But
yeah. And then, you know, you talk about his frame. He's 6'6", he's 262 pounds, he can move. He's a guy that's going to be really versatile. And a lot of people wanted Chase Young. Plain and simple, a lot of people want to Chase Young, and when you look at it, you know, San Francisco only gave up a third rounder. We gave up a second rounder for who a lot of people would argue is the lesser of the two. However, John Hurst said something really interesting. He said, would you rather pay for youth and potential, or would you rather pay for veteran experience? And I would take the latter every time.
Yeah, and availability is your best ability in this league.
Yeah.
And Montez Sweat has yet to miss a game due to injury, where Chase Young missed almost an entire season because of his injury.
Yeah.
But, you know, Sweat immediately comes in as your third best guy in the defense.
Easily.
Maybe your best. Because you got Tremaine Edmonds, you got Jalen Johnson, T.J. Edwards. Yeah, I'm happy about this move. I think it's the best thing the Bears could have done at the deadline.
Yeah, for sure.
I was expecting them to sell off a few more guys, maybe Jalen Johnson and Eddie Jackson, but they decided not to, and they're sticking with their group. Yeah,
I was ready to let go of Jalen Johnson after I heard the news come out. I don't want to. But I was preparing myself for the grief once I heard that news came out that you had requested a trade, which I'll talk about a little bit more when we get into the next year's draft. So, yeah.
Well, kind of moving on.
Yeah.
The Bears are kind of in the middle of a QB controversy.
That we are, yeah. You see, I've got the jersey on right now. People say, you know, is Fields the guy? A lot of people don't think Fields is the guy. I think everybody wants Fields to be the guy.
Absolutely.
Everybody wants Fields to be the guy. You know, nobody's really going to debate about that. But I think just he's not the problem. I'll say it plain and simple. He's not the problem. I think he's a guy who I'll say this. He's a system quarterback. He needs a system, which I have here is the main thing. The guy needs a system, and the guy needs a coach who's going to let him do what he wants to do. So I want to. We'll see what you think about that.
So when it comes to Fields, I don't think he's the problem, but he's part of it.
Yeah, of course.
Obviously, he's not meant for whatever Luke Getsky's system wants to run, but he needs to kind of start adapting more. He's not a pure pocket passer, but he cannot just hold on to the ball and take sacks every time he hits the ball. We saw that become an issue early on in the season. But so far in the season, he has a 61.7% completion percentage. 1,200 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. On the surface, it looks great. But the Bears are 2-6.
Yeah.
It's not working. This is year 3. You're coming into a heavy QB class with Caleb Williams and Drake May. And if you decide, we're giving him another year, you go to 2025 looking for a quarterback, and there's not a good class.
Right.
You got Spencer Rattler when he comes out. You got Cade Klubnik from Clemson. And, with this injury, it really changes everything.
Yeah, it does. And I think, there's hope. There's excitement with Badgett, but everyone knows he's not going to be the guy, obviously. And I think, he's everyone knows what he can do on his feet.
Mm-hmm.
Top 5 every year since he's come into the league. I mean, this year, even with his injury, he's the 4th leading rusher amongst QBs in the league. Led the league last year with 1,100 yards. And I just think, if you have a coach, Justin came out and said he doesn't feel as though they're in the best position to win because of the coaching, and he was then subsequently forced to apologize for that, which I found that whole situation to be a little bit concerning on Eberflus's part, which, when you have a guy who is supposed to be your guy and he doesn't feel like he's being properly coached, he doesn't feel like he's being properly used, and your response to that as a coach is to tell him to apologize, it shows that the staff simply doesn't trust him. I feel like Eberflus doesn't fully believe in him, or he just doesn't know what he can do, which if either of those things are the case, that's a problem on the coaching.
I don't think not buying in is that big of a problem because he was not the guy who drafted him.
Mm-hmm.
It was Ryan Pace, Matt Nagy, and when Poles and Eberflus came in, things just
right.
They came in to fix a team.
Right.
The Bears were in an awful situation when they came in with no direction.
Mm-hmm.
And now, after that, we have somewhat a sense of direction. And we came in, this season hoping that Justin Fields is the guy.
Mm-hmm.
We built upon flashes last year, and this year it's just kind of been a dud.
Yeah.
And you add a talented receiver like DJ Moore, you want your offense to start rolling.
You do.
It just hasn't been the case.
Yeah, it hasn't been the case, and just looking at some quick stats here. I mean, the Bears are ranked the 30th offense in the league out of 32. I mean, the offense has regressed. Like that's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel as though I feel like a lot of that has to do with the fact that we're not using DJ Moore properly. He's not getting enough targets. He has never gotten enough targets at any point during this season.
Even against Washington. He went off for 8 catches, 230 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Should have had more.
That should be his stat line every game. He should be our main target.
Absolutely.
And I just don't know what our offensive staff is doing. But I think they're really putting Justin Fields in a bad position and sparking conversations like the one we're having right now just because of the situations that he's being put in. And obviously, that's not all to blame. No. Justin Fields is some to blame. There's things that he needs to work on, obviously. His QBR has never really been good. This season specifically, among 6 games, 37.6 QBR. But I think it's just a lot of that. It's his 3rd year in the league. Next year, I feel like, year 4, year 5, you get a good coach in place. That's a time where he can really excel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have 2 kind of coaching candidates that I really like moving forward. First of which being Jim Harbaugh. He's currently the head coach at Michigan, was the Bears' first-round pick in 1987. And, his seat's getting hot in Michigan.
Yeah.
We kind of saw something similar happen in 2009 when Pete Carroll kind of started feeling sanctions coming for USC, and he jumped back over to the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
As an NFL head coach, Jim Harbaugh is 49-22-1.
Right.
He went to the Super Bowl with the San Francisco 49ers. Lost it, obviously. And I would take that in a heartbeat. I love the system they run. I think that's the kind of a guy you bring to help Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Because
I totally agree.
He can build a quarterback, especially that same play style. He had Colin Kaepernick with the 49ers. And similar play styles, Fields can run the ball more so than pass it. And then another guy is Ben Johnson, current offensive coordinator for the Lions.
Okay.
Since being promoted to the position in 2022, they have a top 5 offense. We're selling out the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
What he's been able to do with Jared Goff over there is insane. When he got traded to the Lions, it was like, he's not that good anymore. They'll be getting another quarterback in a few years. He's a franchise quarterback right now.
Yeah, he's their guy, and that's a huge up to Ben Johnson for sure with that. Thank you for tuning into today's episode of Across the Line. we're glad you could join us, and hopefully the Bears can turn this thing around and get a win this Sunday at 12 against the New Orleans Saints in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Signing off, this is Jackson Magad.
I'm David Peters. Have a great night.